All right, it is the death lineup. As I mentioned last episode, Brian is on vacation, so we missed last week, but somebody came in and saved the day for me. None other than our favorite secondary guest host, I guess, because you've been on a few times. Ben Cruz, what's up, man?
Double G, thanks for having me on, man. What is Brian doing taking a vacation this late in the season?
Well, he'll be back by Sunday, I believe. So that's the
Okay.
last game. So
Yeah.
he'll be back for the playoffs. So he actually timed it. He timed it okay. He timed it okay.
Right.
We're going to talk about Warrior stuff, and we're going to dig into the playoffs, Wiggins, everything about that. But the first thing I want to ask you, with you and your company, you guys go on these like business trips to these big events, and you produce so much content. Now, you guys did the All-Star game. I know you've done live shows with the Ringer.
Yeah.
And then you were just at WrestleMania this past weekend, and you guys put out so much stuff. Like, what is that process like of going on like it's a business trip? I mean, I'm sure you have a little bit of fun, but you guys are working so hard.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're very lucky in that WWE has been very kind with the connects, right? I mean, the amount of interviews that we got out there was awesome. And the shows that we had to do around those interviews were also great. And just getting the guys all together, like we most of them actually live on the East Coast. So it was cool to have them kind of over here on the West Coast to kind of do these shows. But it was a grind. I mean, I basically lived in this wrestling bubble for an entire week. It was 8 days. Literally, I drove home Tuesday morning, and I'm still somewhat recovering from that week. When you're there, what WWE did was genius out there. They took over the city.
Yeah, it was tremendous.
You know what I mean? And I mean, there were other indie shows and everything else happening out there, WrestleCon, all this other stuff. But the WrestleMania was the thing. Everything was based around WrestleMania, and you couldn't help but do content with them.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most fun work things I've ever done. Also one of the most tiring, but it was at the end of the day completely worth it, except for the Raw After Mania, which I don't. The Raw After Mania is the equivalent of this entire Warriors season. Like last year was night 1 of WrestleMania 39, and then this season has been the Raw After Mania after WrestleMania 39. So that was it was a time, but I'm glad to be back and escape from this bubble and talk some hoop a little bit.
The Ringer, I would say, now this is just being someone who's been a fan of Bill Simmons since he started at ESPN. Really, is when I could read his work. You guys are really strong in hoop. That's Bill's favorite sport. You guys got a lot of really strong hoop writers, and the podcast as well. What is was there a difference in the way that you guys did content for hoop as when you were in WrestleMania, like for the All-Star game? Or was it like that same process? You guys have a process. This is what you do on these live things, and this is how you produce all this stuff. Did it feel any different, or was it very similar to how you guys do basketball?
It felt a little different in that. So the last couple ones we did, the NBA ones that you kind of alluded to there, that was more about giving the live crowds that we had kind of had venues at, a show that featured all of our Ringer NBA people, right? KOC, Logan, Kyle Mann, Michael Pina, everyone. I'm trying making sure I don't forget anyone because people will get mad. Chris Vernon. And this one was. We did some live stuff, but this was more about getting those interviews that we could get with a lot of the superstars who were all there. And again, literally everyone was there. This was such a different experience than the last one we did was at SummerSlam. And for most of the week that we were there, half the roster wasn't there because SmackDown was in a different city. WWE was in LA. starting from, I want to say Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
because they had some tryouts that were happening out there near, I think it was in Inglewood near UCL, or in UCL at UCLA, I should say. And they were there basically until Monday night so everyone was there. The accessibility was just very different. And that's what we were given the opportunities to just have this time
Mm-hmm.
with a bunch of them. And it ended up awesome. And, we also obviously mixed in our preview shows, and our post shows. Even get squeezed in a little show at Wale Mania, which was fantastic with Bay Area cats in the Usos and Solo Sikoa. So
How was Walleye Mania fun?
yes. Yeah. It was a wrestling fan fever dream,
Yeah,
because there was just the Forbidden Door, all this good stuff, right? Like AEW and WWE and everything else is supposed to be head to head and blah blah blah. They were all there,
yeah,
chilling.
yeah.
I was standing in the back at one point, and Adam Cole was like standing right across from me, and so was Britt Baker, and he was chopping it up with the Usos. You know what I mean? Who were just there, and you're just like, it's not bizarre, because they don't actually all hate each other.
Yeah.
There's some whatever between some certain people, but most of them just get along. Like Powerhouse Hobbs there chilling with Big E. And
those photos went out, and that a lot of people were really in on those photos. They loved those photos. We could talk about this stuff at some point. I'm going to bring you on one of the wrestling shows, and we'll do that stuff. Let's stay on the basketball tip here. One of the more unfortunate stories of the year is right when it feels like the Warriors are getting something going, then something falls off and they got to regroup, was this Andrew Wiggins story.
Yeah.
He's been gone for over 20 games now. He is back with the team. He was with the team a couple days ago when they played Oklahoma City. It doesn't look like he's going to play for the rest of the regular season. They're probably just going to tune him up, and they've learned sort of how to play without him. I don't know how well, but they have been able to stay afloat. And the idea is that let's just get this guy back and ready to go for the playoffs. When you were thinking about that story, now I don't think you would consider yourself like a journalist in the way that some people do, but
Sure.
you obviously have thoughts about how to cover something. Do you think that the way that the Warriors handled this, like it sounds like the way that the Warriors handled this was the very, very protective and very athlete centric, which is great. That's the organization that they have. But from the media standpoint, I was kind of wondering, do you think the media folks like pulled off of this story just because that was kind of the sign that they were getting from the Warriors? Like, this is different. Like because I feel like in a different market, maybe there would have been a lot more questions, a lot more digging, a lot more sort of investigating. Like, what is this dude doing? Did you feel that way? Or did you sort of feel like what it seemed like the Bay Area media did, which is, okay, we did our digging. They want that everything's quiet. We're going to keep cool.
I mean, it's wild that in 2023 that nothing about it ever leaked, right? There were obviously all those ridiculous rumors,
stupid
that
rumors
surfaced, and the TikTok rumors and everything else that had ultimately no bearing whatsoever. But I saw a piece by, I believe it was by Sam Amick over at The Athletic, that was out today, or maybe it was yesterday, that he described basically this whole situation with Wiggins and how the Warriors handled it like a masterclass. Right? That was, I believe, the term in the headline. And it's hard to argue with that, because in any other situation, especially now in this information driven rumor monger world that we live in, something was going to leak. That's just what you thought when it became sort of a little bit on the weird side of, oh, is he okay? Like, what's going on with him?
Yeah.
And the fact that nothing leaked from the organization, like it was this tight-lipped, I mean, refreshing. I don't know if that's the correct word, but it was definitely different, because in any other situation, it would have leaked.
Yeah.
There have been far less things than obviously what it came out. His family's dealing with some family issues and everything else, but like in any other situation, I feel like someone would have had loose lips a little bit. Someone in the locker room, someone in the organization, and they kept it sealed. And to your point, I mean, we read everyone who covers the Warriors in the Bay. They're all very, very good at their job.
Yeah.
And they did their due diligence in digging and asking the people that they usually ask. And they couldn't get, and I'm sure they tried very, very hard. The fact that they couldn't get it, I mean, I believe it was Marcus Thompson who he tweeted this or wrote it, where it was just, if the Warriors are good with Wiggins being out, so should we.
Mm.
And once that came out, it was a wrap. Like, what are we doing? We're digging into this dude's personal life because we want him to play basketball. I mean, it just got. There was a period there where you wanted answers, right? You maybe 7 to 10 days in, you're like, well, is exactly what's going on? Like, can we, you're just trying to brace yourself as someone who consumes the Warriors. After that, it just became a matter of, oh, it must be, if nothing is leaked, again, it must be serious. It must be bad.
Well, and that also says to me is the organization kept such a tight lip on this thing, due in part because they know that Andrew himself is very secretive and he wants to make sure that his information doesn't really get out. And so what Marcus, in a sense, is saying is that if the Warriors were unhappy, if the organization was unhappy, somebody may have said something and they didn't, and thus nobody knew. And I believe that someone as experienced as Tim Kawakami, he was probably the closest. He's the closest person to what people would consider like these East Coast media folks, right? Because he worked out there. So, but I found the whole thing fascinating, and kind of like you, even though we kind of are media in some way, the fact that it didn't get out was, like you said, refreshing. And the fact that it wasn't any, like, obviously the family issue that they're dealing with, I think Shams said it was his father, a health issue with his father, former NBA player Mitchell Wiggins. And like that, they really, really made sure to take care of him. And that is something that kind of warms my heart, because there's been some issues with this team in the last several years, right? There's been a lot of chaos with the team, Kevin Durant and Draymond punching Jordan Poole, and the Gary Payton injury and the James Wiseman thing. So it was kind of like, okay, like, let's bottle it down because we are so focused on this last run here.
And that's part of the fascinating thing too, right? Is just, if you're looking at the most recent thing with this Wiggins situation, if you're a player on the outside, right, and you're looking at it, you must be impressed that the whole organization was able to keep this under wraps, or more or less. But then on the flip side, no one could stop that video of Draymond punching Jordan Poole from getting out, right? So it's this dichotomy that is super, super interesting. But I mean, obviously with the first instance with the video, someone got some sort of bag and got greedy and did their thing. And this was and someone's trying to vilify Draymond, right? with that video. This one, it didn't have, I mean, what good would it have done anyone to leak it, right? Yeah. No amount of money, like, you have to be a real piece of work to be out there trying
I guess
information on Wiggins' family.
The only reason to, even if you're on the Wiggins side, is to just like disprove these stupid rumors. But if you disprove the stupid rumors, then you're like, well, we're even the fact that we're giving them any attention is probably not good. So yeah, that all that. Do you think that it's going to be enough? He's going to have enough time to kind of get in the swing of things and be helpful whenever their first playoff game is?
I mean, that will be interesting. It's hard to say like he'll be right back, kind of back and forth. I mean, when he came back from his initial injury, before he took this time, he struggled a little bit, right? But he started to find his footing before the
He
All-Star
was
break.
playing really well before he left.
Yeah. So it might take him some time, and that's probably what they're using, this ramp up period. I feel like we've used the word ramp up with the Warriors synonymously for the last couple of years, but he's going to help because he provides them something. He might, again, last year he was their second best player in the finals.
Yeah.
Right. Just both ends of the court being not dominance, probably not the right word, but being just super effective. A point of attack defender, someone who could get his own shot when the actions break down.
Rebounding like a madman.
Rebounding like whatever he was averaging in the finals, which was ridiculous. But he will be helpful because he has something. He does stuff that no one on the rest of the team does as a complete package and as one player, right? He's probably the most versatile player on the team, and one of the most important. So whether they'll slot him in and they'll build that back up. I mean, in terms of what matchup probably is best for that, I feel like that's the Kings, because I feel like he could slow play that just a smidge, just a little bit. The Kings are very, very good, but they also can't defend anyone. So if you want Wiggins to find his rhythm and find some confidence, that's the team you want. If you're in the play-in in a 1-game situation, or I guess, if you're sitting the 7-8 game, a 2-game situation, I don't know how ideal that is to throw Wiggins into the deep end like that, but there's no way he won't be effective because they just need everything that he's going to bring to the table.
And if they do skip the play-in, you have a whole week off, and then you could even gingerly bring him back like they did Steph last year at the beginning of the playoffs, where he comes in as like the 6th man. And, you could start Kuminga and have Kuminga play like a 5-minute stint and then replace him with Wiggins. There's some stuff that they can do. But yeah, I mean, I'm a little worried just because we saw what happened when he was hurt and then he came back. It just seemed like it took him forever to get his rhythm. It's not like Steph, where Steph just comes out of the gate gunning. Like, he's just like, yeah, I was gone, but this is how I get my rhythm back. I'm just gunning. Right. So that's going to be, I think, a big key to this playoffs, and why they probably need to avoid the play-in, which we're going to talk about right now. As you see it, and I know you've been in wrestling world here for a little while, but we have 2 games left. Currently, the Warriors sit in the 6th spot, and like you said, they would play the Kings in the first round. And I guess supposedly there's like 4 starters are questionable for Friday's game on Sacramento's end.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have much to play for at this point, right? They seem to be locked in to the 3 seed, and why wouldn't you just rest all your guys? The last thing you want at this point is an injury.
Yeah.
To kind of derail any type of momentum heading into the playoffs. So again, the Warriors just need to win one of the 2, right, in the next of the last 2 to kind of secure this 6.
Well, I think
and they'll be gunning for it.
If the Clippers win 2, they'll have 44 wins, and if the Lakers win 2, they'll have 43 wins. So if the Lakers and the Warriors finish with the same record and the Warriors go 1-1, the Lakers would actually leapfrog the Warriors. The Warriors would be in 7. So it's really about what the Lakers do. If the Lakers, I think the Lakers play the Suns tomorrow or later today, depending on when you listen to this. And if the Suns beat the Lakers, then I think the Warriors are pretty good. But if the Lakers beat the Suns, then they got the Jazz to end the season, and that's probably a game that they win. So it's really dependent on this upcoming Friday game. Now, if the Warriors win out, then they're fine. They don't have to worry about it. So they obviously the destiny is in their own hands at this point to just win 2 and get to 44 wins. That's why the Clippers game last night was I thought that was a good finish for the Warriors. Was okay.
It was an ideal result for them.
Yeah, and the Clippers would have fell below the Warriors, but then they could win 2, and if they caught the Warriors, it's all crazy. But I think they're in good shape. But they winning Friday would be really good for them. Tanking that Friday game, especially if the Suns are gonna sit some folks, that would be really bad.
I mean, it doesn't help that this is on the road, right? It's completely unexplainable at this point. I feel like where their struggles, but I mean, again, if the Kings are resting people and they're not at full strength, full capacity, the Warriors do have a shot, and if they don't figure this out now, then when? You know what I mean? Like at some point, you're gonna have to go on the road, or they're going to be on the road a lot,
Yes.
right? If they make the playoffs, so. It's something they just got to figure out in these next couple of days here.
Okay, let me quickly read the scenarios here. Okay. If the Warriors go 2-0 and the Clippers go 2-0, the Warriors are in the 6th spot. If the Warriors go 2-0 and the Clippers lose one game, the Warriors would actually go all the way to 5.
Oh, geez. Yep.
So if the Warriors split, all kinds of crazy stuff can happen. If the Clippers, Lakers, and the Pelicans go 2-0 and the Warriors split, the Warriors fall all the way to 8th. That is not good.
That's insane.
If the Clippers go 1-1 and the Lakers and Pelicans also go 2-0, the Warriors are 8th again. If the Clippers go 1-1 and the Pelicans lose 1 and the Lakers go 2-0, the Warriors are 7th. So you have all of these different weird ways that the Warriors can fall out. And so that's why I'm just like, can we just win 2 basketball games? I don't know if we've won 2 on the road before in a row this year. It could be good to happen, for good first thing to happen here at the end of the season. But if they just win 2 games that are locked in to at least 6 and could also go up to 5. So how about let's just do that?
I mean, they're in no position whatsoever, given the season that they've had, to just be willy-nilly about trying to throw away one road game or try to position themselves. They have to win both, or at least try to win both. Because again, if they had just taken some of these road games early on in the season just a little bit more seriously and just kind of went for it. I mean, this is now obviously hindsight is 2020 type of thing, but that first road trip that they went on, that 5 games
in a row, right?
Where they went 0-5, lost a bunch of them within the last minute or so.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Like, you're not in this position. You're probably firmly entrenched in the 6 or the 5. And you're not having to worry about falling all the way to 8, all the way to the play-in, where you haven't proven yourself at all. Where the last time you were in the play-in, you lost 2 games. I mean, they have no room. One of the narratives of this season with them has been the room for error has been razor thin.
Yeah.
And we're back to that again in these next 2 games.
You said it on a few of the early shows that you did with us this year. You used the term playing with their food. That's what they were doing on the road. Like they just sort of expected to win these games, and then they would get really sloppy and they'd lose these games in the end. And you're just like, God, I really hope that one doesn't hurt us, because that looked like an easy W. Like there was a Charlotte game, I think they lost in Charlotte.
Yeah.
And so that's now they're paying for it. Now, if you were to guess, just based on how this Warriors season has gone so far, do you expect them to play above their expectations in these last 2 games and make things easy? Or do you expect them to fool around and make it hard, which is kind of what I'm expecting?
Yeah, I mean, again, with these being 2 road games, I firmly believe they can go 2-0. Do I expect 2 convincing wins, 2 blowouts? Absolutely not. Because again, they've given the fans and analysts and whoever watching them absolutely no reason to trust them on the road.
Yeah.
Right. It's literally gotten to the point where people have tried to figure it out. Right. Zach Cram wrote a great piece for us on the Ringer. I believe it was who wrote it on the Athletic. Was it Hollinger or someone like that? They like have all these numerical breakdowns.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
All these advanced stats, the stuff that you want to see, that maybe through all of this, you find a statistic that you can hang on to. And at the end of these pieces, it always just comes down to there's really nothing we can surmise from any of this, right? It's so unexplainable. And look, they've they've just got to sack up, right, and kind of do what they've done in the past, which is be very, very good on the road. I mean, that being said, in the West, no one's been good on the road. Right? I don't know if the stat still holds, but I believe on group chat the other day, the guys were talking about it, and there's only one team that has a winning record on the road in the West, and that's the Kings. So it's just been a weird season in general, but the Warriors have just been so far on that weird scale where you don't know what to expect. I mean, you and I and Brian, we text every game, and it's just literally, it's there's a mix of hey, this might be it. This they're looking fine. It's just I'm always just negative. I'm like, we're gonna lose this game.
Yeah,
and eventually, sometimes we do win them, or the Warriors do win them. But I've been beaten down. I've been beaten down to the point where I just assume they're going to lose every road game. And
yeah, me too.
That's just I will remain. I'm preparing myself mentally for the playing game. So that's where I'm at.
To the point from the group chat show, the Nuggets are 19-20 on the road. Grizzlies are 15-24, but they're both tremendous home teams.
Incredible.
The Kings are actually a better road team than they are a home team, which is kind of amazing because they keep lighting the beam, and we think of them as like, oh, Sacramento. No, they're actually a better road team than they are a home team. And then Suns 17-23, Clippers are 500, so they're at 20-20.
Right.
And the Warriors are 9-30. Oh my God.
I mean, wouldn't you sell your soul at this point for the Warriors to be just a smidge under 500 on the road, or a couple of games that
you'd be good. You'd be like, you know what? If they win 18 out of their 41 games, 18 and what is that, 20-21 or whatever, you'd be good with that. You'd be, or 23. Is that right? 23. Yeah. You'd be good with that. You'd be like, yeah, you want to be at least 500, but you'd be fine. And for them to they don't even have double-digit wins on the road, which is crazy.
I know they need to at least pull one of these out to even get there. It's such a statistical anomaly that, again, we'll look back on this years from now, right after the Steph era and Clay and Draymond era is over, and we'll look fondly back on the 4 championships, 15 the first one, 22 the one that the comeback, and then there'll be a pause in the conversation, and I think we'll just turn and look at each other and say, remember their road record in 23? What the hell was wrong with them? It's wild.
Okay, so two questions, then we'll get out of here. The first question is, obviously, it has to be as currently constructed because they're not bringing anybody in. Hopefully, no one's getting hurt. But GP's back. Andrew Wiggins is going to be back. I guess the one person that we don't know is Iguodala, but I still saw he's wearing some sort of guard on his wrist or on his hand. And they've said nothing about Iguodala, so I don't know what to think about Iguodala. But essentially, outside of Iguodala, they have their full team headed to the playoffs. Clay, he didn't play as well, I don't think, in March as he did in February, but he really played well, especially on the time that Steph was gone. Clay really had to carry the burden of the scoring. Kuminga has made some improvements. Even Mo Moody against the Thunder was really solid. He had some really good minutes. My buddy Jay Magat, he tweeted, or no, he texted in a group chat, and he's like, why is Anthony Lamb starting this game against the Thunder? And so I just gave him the spiel of, Brian and I have talked about this stat, and we both hate this stat too, but Kuminga, Lamb, and Draymond together have like this really good plus minus.
Yeah.
And so I was just saying that's probably why. But then you watch that game, and then I was like, yeah, why did Lamb even play? Because the Thunder don't even have a center. They don't even have power forward, really. They're playing like 4 small forwards and a point guard, essentially, in Shea. And I was like, why did Lamb even need to play? Just run small with them and put all of your best offensive players in the game. But Steve did that in the second half. He didn't do that in the first half. So you have these opportunities to switch and match and everything. Do you believe the Warriors have a shot, a good shot to win the West?
I think they have a shot. I think it's, and the only reason is because Wiggins is back.
Yeah.
Right. If Wiggins is not back, they have no shot. If you have Wiggins out there, I mean, you can still fall back on, for the first half or so of the season, right? They still had the best starting five from a number standpoint, right? When he was out there, right? When they're running their conventional Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond, and Looney, right? That's just something that you can fall back on if Wiggins is there. Now, the bench is there's going to be a big adjustment coming, right? There's a domino effect that once Wiggins slides back into the starting spot. How do they handle it? And they just have a lot of guards, right? They have a lot of wings, right? So not a lot in terms of size, and obviously you can throw JaMychal Green in there a little bit.
He has not played.
He's not playing,
yeah.
Right? So you're just gonna throw him in there in kind of the most important games, and maybe you can, in a 7-game series, you can game plan him in, right, for like certain spurts here and there. And
who their bigs are: Looney, Draymond, Kuminga,
yeah.
and Clay.
Yeah, Clay's like a stretch four at this point, or like
he's got to slide out. I mean, you see him banging underneath trying to get rebounds,
and he's not bad.
No, he's fine. I mean, it's different for him, for sure. He never had to really do that in his entire career. Not a great rebounder, but he's got a little bit of size and he's got some strength there, some old man strength as he gets a little older. So it kind of works because then you flip it around on offense, and then whoever's playing 4 has got to go out to the perimeter with him. So in some instances it works, but yeah, Anthony Lamb slides in to play 4. Like when Iguodala was playing, he was playing a lot of 4. It is almost a crime that the Warriors could not find somebody else to take up some of these Draymond and Kevon Looney minutes. Like, it's like one of those things where like you have one job. They couldn't do it.
I mean, in theory though, that was Wiseman.
Yeah, it was supposed
to be Wiseman. It didn't work, and they traded him for 5 picks. Obviously, those 5 picks became GP, and in essence, GP does play sort of like that small big man role. Like offensively,
yeah,
he effectively is a rim runner. You find him in the dunker spot, but it's going to be a slog. And look, Wiggins is in there. I think they have a shot. This JP renaissance that's been sort of happening in the last 7-8 games is if you get this piece or this version of Jordan Poole, the dynamics of the Warriors are just a little bit different, right? Because look, defensively, he's going to be the same train wreck, right? He's not good defensively. He's going to get out of position. He's going to get beat. But if he's shooting efficiently, if he's an efficient offensive player like he was last year, he had the same defensive deficiencies last year. He was just way more efficient in terms of how he could score and everything else. If he can even meet a fraction of that, then there's a shot, because his minutes are not a complete minus, and you can play him in these small lineups, Steph, Poole, Clay, Wiggins, and Draymond, right? And in kind of a closing lineup. I mean, I doubt that they will, because I think Kerr trusts Gary Payton more in kind of a closing lineup like that, where GP will play the 2. But
if Steph seemingly likes that a lot too. He's like the security blanket out there for Steph.
Yeah, I mean he's their only rim runner too. You know what I mean? So it's just, it kind of gives the offense a little bit of a different look. So there's a shot, but going into whatever this ends up being, the playoffs, the play-in, there's the feeling that I have entering whatever this postseason is not where we were last year, right? Obviously, the 3 seed facing a beaten down Nuggets team. Like, all right, they'll probably get past them. Once they beat the Grizzlies, there was a sense, where you felt like they could actually win this whole thing.
Yep.
And that percentage probably starting before that Nuggets series was probably around a 50%. Depending on how this all shakes out, because Steph was still coming back. I don't even know if it's that high, man. Starting these playoffs, it might be kind of around like a 20-30% confidence approval rating, whatever you want to call it. So
I think the Sacramento series, if that is where they play, will tell them a lot, right? Because
totally.
If they have what it takes, they will beat up on the Kings. And if they don't, and the Kings boat race them, then you're like, yeah, that's the Warriors team that I saw all year long. They would have to go through if the standings stay as the playoff picture says today. The Warriors would have to beat Sac, and they would they're not the going to be the home favorite here. They don't have the home court advantage. Then they would have to go into Memphis, a hungry Memphis team.
Oh, they hate the Warriors, by the way. I was in Memphis and I was terrified for my safety.
Did you have to put on a Memphis Grizzlies hat or anything?
Oh, no. It was just being in, we actually did a live show out there, and a couple of teams were thrown out during the show, just in terms of like, what do you think about this team in the West? Right? Smattering of boos for the Nuggets, smattering of boos for the Kings and everyone else. And then they got to the Warriors, who at that time I think were like 7th or 8th. When I tell you the vitriol that came out of these nice Southern people's mouths was shocking. It was, again, I made a choice. I made a business choice and a life choice to not reveal my family to anyone that was in a 2-mile radius.
That's amazing. So then you'd have to go through the Grizzlies, and then if you get out of there, then you're facing either Denver or Phoenix. And again, without home court advantage, the one playoff scenario that I think a lot of Warriors fans are trying to talk themselves into is the repeat of when the Rockets
at 6.
Yeah, the Rockets at 6. They win the West, and then they go and beat the Orlando Magic in the finals. That is the scenario that I would take, which is, there was no real, like, Phoenix was a good team back then. Utah was a good team back then. Seattle was good back then, but there were no killers.
Right. Everyone was in that post-Jordan era a little bit, where everyone was trying to figure it out.
And that's kind of how it is. I mean, Denver got out to a really, really big lead, but they have not played that well of late. I don't know. I don't think Jokic is injured, but he also hasn't had his usual stellar performances as late.
They might be playing possum a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
They're so far ahead where why push it? But they also have some glaring issues that they've got to fix and deal with going into these playoffs. The West is going to be wild, right? Not to kind of go back to that, the Wild West stereotype, but it's going to be interesting. The East, I feel like, there's 3 teams that are cut above the rest, and one of those 3 will emerge from the triple threat there.
So you basically, I think you're answering what my second question was going to be, was if the Warriors would possibly get out of the West, God, you would just think that they would be so tired heading into an Eastern Conference final or an NBA finals against the Eastern Conference team who wins. And Milwaukee, Boston, Philadelphia, those teams are, I feel, I don't know, maybe Denver's better than Philly, but I feel like those 3 teams are better than any of the West teams.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, who's 3 right now? So the Sixers are 3. I mean, we obviously got robbed of that Embiid Jokic matchup, from last week. But and this might be recency bias, but the way that Denver's been playing recently has been, again, a little alarming if you're a Nuggets fan. But also, if you're kind of going on paper a little bit, the Nuggets should be better than the Sixers. And if, let's say that they get there, if that ends up being the NBA championship matchup, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how beaten down Jokic and Embiid are at that point, right? Like that's a slog, and they're going to be physically demolished, right, on their own accord because the way that people defend them and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see how they even survive getting there. But if the Sixers get there, that means they would have had to beaten both the
Yeah,
Celtics
yeah.
and the Bucks theoretically, which again, that is a war and a slog.
All right. I think we'll shut it down here. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I did want to look at this thing with a little bit of realistic eyes because we all want the Warriors to get there because you just get there and then Steph Curry, the way he played in the playoffs last year, he could do that again and really put the team on his back. And it's gonna be really tough though, coming from where their spot is. I mean, if you look at it, going back to what you said at the beginning, where they had like the couple road games here and there where you're like, God, you're just kind of screwing around. If they had 2 more wins, they could have at least home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. Just 2 more. That's what separates Phoenix from where they are right now, which is kind of crazy if you think about it.
And if you think of it, there's so many games that they just gave away, or just, I mean, the game winner against the Pistons, Sadiq Bey.
I was there.
That's what. Yeah, you were there.
Man.
That's one. You mentioned the Bobcats game, or sorry, the Hornets game at the beginning of the season on that 0-5 road trip. You've thrown the Magic in there too during that same road trip. But there's the Jazz game, the inexplicable loss against the Jazz. That's already 4, and that's just off the top of my head, right? It's wild how many they just gave away, and that's just the indicator of really where they are as a team, which is just currently constructed, just kind of an average team, right?
Yeah.
11th offensive rating, 18th defensive rating, 14th in net rating. It's just so middle of the pack stuff where it's not that surprising, but on, obviously coming off of a championship, just, a little surprising.
All right, we'll shut it down. I want to thank Ben for doing this. I didn't want to go dark for 2 weeks in a row. He's still recovering from WrestleMania weekend, so he sucked it up and hung out with us here. But next time we do a show, Bri will be back, and we'll sort of figure out what we're going to do in the playoffs. Because last year during the playoffs is when we launched this show, so we tried to come on and do live recaps of every playoff game. We didn't do every single one, but we did a lot of them. So we'll have to figure out if we have the time to do that. But we're definitely going to do some. And playoffs is going to be fun. The Warriors could be, Cancun, pretty soon. But
right
until that happens, I think it'll be pretty exciting. All right, Ben, thank you for doing this. So for Ben, I'm Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace.
Thanks, everybody.